Hello out there. It is now about Friday at October 5th at about 11:59 p.m. and I'd like to just leave a quick video message pertaining to some exciting updates that are not gimmicky. They're not. They're not. They're nothing but some exciting findings that I humbly discovered, and I just wanted to share them. And I believe that something may perhaps be revealed from these different findings. But I have to carefully mention that they have to do with religion and science. So if say you're turned off by religion, I have to say it's not religious in this case. It's something to do with new findings that maybe it may allow someone, whether religious or not, to perhaps they might do some additional research to see what they think and what they find out themselves too. And maybe this thing could actually be a conglomeration of many different keys that I humbly believe, and I'm going to try to get to the point, which is I humbly believe that the Bible has code, and with the code, it has been hiding this code, and I humbly believe there's a special way to read the Bible, and that the code is going to change the way, I humbly believe it's going to change the way we view the scriptures altogether. If I'm correct, if I've stumbled on anything accurate, or maybe partially, whatever the case is, it's something that's exciting that I found out. But first, again, I want to mention that if someone is turned off by religion or science, that this probably would not be something that they might be interested in. So I apologize for that, not to waste your time. So that being said, I'd like to continue further. I would just like to put some type of quick message for now, in kind of a not too fancy at all style, but just what I've discovered, and then see if there's any response from it, and try to go from there. So first off, what I'd like to say is that I was growing up in a very strict religion, and I was wondering, why would a loving God do these different things? Why would there be things like stoning and so on? And the answers that I got from especially the religion that I was very strict, and it was which was Jehovah's Witness, and it just didn't seem to make sense that such a loving God would also do these different things. So through the years, I would write down my frustrations, and then I wanted to take it to the headquarters of my religion eventually, because certain things burned me up so much that I was like, this doesn't seem right. Maybe you're interpreting it wrong, or what can be done, or is there a scripture to counterbalance it, to help me understand? Because it seemed like the Bible was doing kind of a labyrinth of riddles. So that which is what I have asked people over the years, and what the answers that I'm receiving, and especially from my religion, the way they interpret it is, yes, it's sort of like it's like a labyrinth to weed out people who are not interested, and from those who are, type thing. And so that they do the legwork, they do the hunting for the searching, not hunting, sorry. They do the searching for what is the heavens would be asking of them. So what I'm trying to say, to get to the point real quick, I believe that the Bible has actually been, the personalities of the heavens have actually been masquerading themselves as a Wizard of Oz type scenario, in that they, humbly I say this, in that they didn't want us to know that they were overexposing the parameters of right and wrong in a hyperextended manner, and in a manner where the parameters would get very extremely exaggerated, like almost like a cartoon, and worse in certain ways, and in certain ways pathetically. And I'm not saying this that I'm not making conclusive statements. What I'm saying is, I mean, I know what I believe about it, but what I am saying is that this is the information I humbly present to you. And so what I believe is that not only are they that loving that of the individuals in the Bible in terms of the positive things, but that they're actually infinitely more loving than that. That I humbly believe they went to a certain point to help reveal a point about more than obedience at the moment. Say, for example, you have a dividing line from point zero, and on one side would be obedience, the other side would be being disobedient or being bad, and so then all the way on the edge of obedience is where we started. In other words, way in the way in the positive, it seemed like people started like, whoa, how do you please that God? And I can't speak for all religions, because born agains interpret the scriptures a different way. So what I humbly believe, is that the Bible, what it did was, the Bibles, the reason why we had all the Bibles was because I humbly believe the heavens caused that to happen in order for all these different interpretations to find out what the heavens really mean by scattering the clues about, not in any one particular religion. So how do I back this claim? Well, it would take some time to present these things, but I feel like we're in an emergency situation, in a sense that yet I'm not trying to be paranoid by any means. All I'm saying is I think we're in an emergency situation, because I believe that this is mainly at the moment, it appears, humbly I say this, it appears to be mainly at the moment it is a spiritual battle, but also a psychological battle. And where science arrives on the scene is has to do with I humbly believe has to do with, in my theory only, I present to you only as a theory, that has to do with the body and the way it's newly discovered how it works, and how the earth works and everything, and having to do the new studies having to do with atoms, and how they have a space in between. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to leave questions too, like a form of discussion, perhaps, if people want to start that way, by communicating if they wish, if that's what they'd like to do. But what I humbly believe is that basically the heavens were masquerading that as well. There's a scripture that says, "From dust you are, to dust you will return," and it didn't talk about the atoms and how they're just like as if they're alive. They're moving. They're called dancing dots according to one article that I'd read. And the dancing dots have a space in between. And from what I heard, and I'm going to do more research on it, but from what I heard, you should be able to see through your hand, for example, because it's see-through, and it may be temporary in ways, in terms of not that we're temporary, but in terms of the particles that are moving around. And so the scientists want to prove things by, from what I heard, they want to prove things by slowing down time and having a hand, for example, go through a table and see if it becomes one with the table and so on, because they say the hand is transparent. That in reality, that if you slow down time, that you'd be able to see the atoms moving and so on. And so regardless, this particular religion that I was I'm winging this, by the way, because like I said, I humbly believe that I'm onto something, or that people are onto something, because I apologize. People are onto something, including myself. Like the Discovery Channel, they're finding clues that seem to be something in the Bible that is also revealing perhaps messages, like the Torah that reads downward. And I apologize, I'm going to be jumping subjects a lot, so please try to stay patient with me. But the Torah is being read downwards, and they circle it like a crossword puzzle, and they've been finding codes like what looks like modern day sadnesses that are happening in the world, that may be something. It'd be better to see it on the Discovery Channel instead of speaking of it too much. But just so, but this one, the stuff that I've been stumbling on looks like what's called I don't know if I'd call it terminology, but stuff that it's not really terminology, but more like what's the word that urban dictionary type stuff, and more like heavy duty, the heavy dutyest stuff that we got out there, the really heavy stuff. And what I humbly believe, again, I don't know if I mentioned this in the past, is this: that the heavens have been masquerading themselves. This is my theory that I present to you only, is that the heavens have been masquerading themselves as a Wizard of Oz scenario. In other words, they are purposely setting up these labyrinths for some type of psychological battle of mirrors within ourselves. And it would take too long to explain in one video, but I'm thinking I may have to put together several videos on the subject. And so getting back to the hand, the hand is see-through, according to scientists, perhaps. So the next is my religion. The religion I happen to be, Jehovah's Witness, was saying that basically the soul is the, from what I understand, I'm not making conclusive statements, and I ask humbly, if you hear something that I say and it's incorrect, please don't say, oh, he's trying to put factual statements out. I'm saying that this is what I found. I believe this and that with total. I know that something is going wrong myself, but I present it to you only as a theory. So, but if I'm to be corrected, it would be, to me, it would be good if it was done in a good way, the way you would like to be shown assistance. Not something to tear people down, because I think that we're at a time right now that we need to work together and try to find peace, even if you're not religious and you're listening to this just out of curiosity. But back to the hand that back to the Jehovah's Witnesses say that the body is basically the um, or the conductor of electricity, which is the soul, and that it's alive, and that the body has a spirit that's only an animator. And to me, that does not make sense, because um, it if the spirit is null and it's not alive and it's animating what a body that has electricity and from what I understand, nothing else. Because if you take a look, if a person, I humbly say this very carefully, but if a person takes a look at, sorry, I didn't mean to over ham this thing, but basically if a person takes a look at a computer motherboard, it's infinitely less important, but from what I understand, humbly, until I'm corrected, it's basically the same thing. Nothing in there is some kind of super PC. PC, is it called PCU? I think it's I can't remember the name of it. PC chip, PCU. I forgot the dang. It's been a while. They basically the main chip. I forgot the name of it. Dang it. But anyway, that chip, does it have an awareness to it? So therefore, where does the awareness come from on a human body? Does the animator spirit rev up the electronics so much so that they become aware? Because without awareness, you don't have personality, feelings, love. You don't have awareness again itself. And then another thing, love, hate. Let's see. Personality, awareness, emotion, awareness, and love. Those three things, basically. So, what I was moving forward, awareness is the crux. It's the main. It's the foundation. So, that brings me to another wonderment about science, which is, can scientists prove that an AI is really, really, really self-aware? Or is an AI actually a device that was created by, you might say, and I'm being figurative when I say this, a whole lot of computers and cameras all over the earth taking taking pictures of people with different expressions, and maybe even their heartbeats, maybe their pulse, maybe their chemical reactions to things, and observing them so well that it becomes a mimicker and not a self-aware being, but yet mathematically can kind of, especially according to its programming from the assistant and additional assistance programming from their from its makers to make decisions mathematically. But as far as awareness, emotion, and love, for an AI to be able to accomplish that, and especially the awareness, and well, all of them, especially because the emotion. Here's another thing: in the dictionary, emotion is not even discussed well, and it's very, very incredibly vague. And no offense to the dictionary creators, that they're doing their best, but what I would say is that a lot of books humbly define emotion as non-definable. In fact, there are many science fiction movies on the subject where emotion is pondered over, and so is love, because it's elusive and it's intangible. And so how does this come into, how does this, how does this arrive at a point about Jehovah's Witness is because I humbly believe this, that there are certain things in life that I humbly believe that could lead to, sadly, and I say sadly, I say tragically this. Before I didn't want to say this, but now I'm saying it as an emergency, and I say this as a tourniquet, just about to go on a quest for, if you even call it that, a journey, a quest for finding out about humans and so on, and who we are and our awarenesses and everything, because it's, to me, humbly I say this, and I'm not trying to, this is just my personal belief, and it's not it's not it's not it's not geared toward anyone that is not appreciative of that. If they're not appreciative of what I'm saying, then I don't want it to seem like I'm trying to, trying to say that that belongs to them. So what I would say is, in my humble opinion, those who might agree with me, if they ever did, about the the emergency state, the emergency situation that we're in terms of not appreciating a quest like you would normally. Why? Because I humbly believe, for those who believe like I do, that it's sort of like making fun of people, because because what I believe is that the body was electronic because it's making some kind of point about guides, about life, and and I have a whole lot of notes. I mean, I have a lot of notes, and if I were to take the time to put together the notes and write everything down, I could get a really wonderful thing going. But the way I view it however, the way I view it right now is that I'm just winging it. I'm doing the best I can because of the emergency state, which is what I humbly believe is, again, the Oz state. And I'll explain why I believe that we're in an Oz state, is that that they are creating a type of a template planet where reverse psychology is being in effect, in order for us to take a look in the mirror at ourselves and see what we think of ourselves, as opposed to an Oz God like what I humbly believe the Jehovah's Witnesses, who they worship. And I believe the name Jehovah and Jesus and so on are actually some type of code that needs to be dissected, just like letters pieced apart and very carefully and diagnosed to see if they are if there is a legitimate diagnosis to any kind of patterns in the Bible words, because I believe the code was actually hidden in plain sight. When I was a kid, we were all playing hide and seek, and I took I took an object and I put it on my lap, and while my friends were running around, they didn't even notice that I was sitting right there in the chair, right in front of him, in plain sight, because we had taken all the very difficult hiding spots. So if there is a code and it's hidden right in plain sight, and people start noticing it, then what I believe is that's what I humbly believe that would be a good place for us to people to start looking, because it's making, I humbly believe it's supposedly being sarcastic to us. In other words, I believe the heavens set up a fake earth, an earth that is, you might say, like a light show, a studio, to but that might be razzing it too much. But it could be like that. That would mean that if people know more, what I humbly believe is that there's an understanding that they might have, that they might possibly, who knows, could have with I know I'm jumping around. I know it's a lot of stuff. I'm doing my best, but anyway, it could be that they know things and they're maybe told to just keep it to themselves, or in other words, it could be a spirit that's telling certain people, because I've seen too many weird things lately. And here's another thing that you might find peculiar nowadays. Since 2012, um, uh, back in 2012, that was the last time I humbly noticed that Armageddon was mentioned, um, in terms of major efforts uh, to reveal its questionings. And for example, I would be at the grocery store, and you'd see tabloids like, oh, 2012 Nostradamus and so on. Then after about that time, it was like as if it faded off to me. And now I just have been speaking with some people at the, where I go at the gym and so on, maybe the library, or like a bookstore, and they would say, yeah, they've noticed. A few people told me they've noticed that people don't care that they've noticed. The ones that they saw don't care. In other words, as time goes on, the Bible is becoming more and more boring, perhaps, or some people, maybe a lot of people might disagree with me, and I'm good with that too, because it kind of depends on how you look at it. But overall, people are involved so much with their busy lives that it's like almost like a setup, like they're drawn to the product instead of the interaction between one another. The thing is, I'm not trying to heavily debate the subject. What I am trying to bring out is that there's more of, in my humble opinion, is that there's like a kind of a deadness about the Bible. However, I humbly believe that the heavens did that on purpose in order to uh, uh, bring it to light that it was a sham, that Armageddon is going to prove to be a code of some kind, and that and please brace yourself for this one, that actually they made up a fake Satan program in order to strengthen us, as in like a mental mirror, to strengthen us. So the tragic part, which is good, it's tragic and good. I'm so sorry that I said good. I'm sorry, but I mean, I take that back. I'm so sorry I said it good first, because what I should say is infinitely tragic. All the infinite's tragic, and then good after that. Why? Because it's too sad to mention, because of all the events that are going on in the earth that are so morbidly sad. So, however, there is the psychology of being, trying not to be too sad about it, or too, because if you're too one way, then you might bring others down as well, because especially if it depends on the temperament and the personality of each individual. Some people need to be, and so on. Some people need to be a certain way, and others, they can handle more negativity and so on. But I believe, of course, the negativity will amount to positive, because I believe that this sham or light show is actually some kind of a gateway to the truth about what's really going on in the world. In other words, I better stop right there for this part, and then see what type of response I might get in the next day or so. And in the meanwhile, I'll be working on another video, because I need to be careful about how I word the next part. But about the body, what I believe is that spirit that the witnesses are talking about is that's an animator only. To me, seems entirely like a sham, because for it to be for it to be um, non-alive, and yet operating someone who is alive is very robotic. It's very to me, for one thing, it's very robotic. It's like revving up an engine type thing, instead of being able to understand its, and also too, to say that the electronics that are the exterior of it, as beautiful as the human body is, in many certain cases, in the right setting, of course, many certain cases when you say, wow, that person is really good looking and so on, but nonetheless, the body is cheap compared to what, or should be, to me. I said that too dogmatically, I'm sorry. To me, it seems like that in my theory, that the body should only be the, not the crux, but the, what I humbly believe is some type of, you might say, unknown, I don't want to say energy, but unknown, I don't want to say force, but force is pretty okay, but unknown factor, like a spirit, perhaps. So to me, that spirit, if that's how, I don't mind referring to it as spirit. I humbly prayed about it, because again, I used to be a witness, and now I stopped because I felt that I was teaching an Osgod message, and I'm glad to say that I shed that. And now I realize that I humbly realize to myself that I believe that they're in the dark, and they don't mean to be. They mean the best, but they're making people sick with their message, and they're spreading Osgod type, which, if you recall, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, it was really bad, because compared to that Oz, that's nothing compared to Osgod, because that god was a stoner, and a ground had people swallowed up from the ground, and also was what's called a rug puller. And what I mean by that, I meant that in a clean way only. I'm sorry, in case someone might misinterpret what I'm saying. Sorry, I apologize. I hope I didn't lose anybody's attention. No, it's okay. So what I mean by that, by pulling a rug from someone's feet, what I mean is if you're standing on a rug, and okay, I'll just try to say it. I'll just have to continue because of what's of the best I can do. If you're standing on a rug, and someone goes and pulls it, or they say they're not going to do it, like you might see